No, this will be a little more open forum. So, but it is 6 o'clock and we will go ahead and get started. This is a public conversation about the proposed farm animal ordinance. My name is Matt Credonier. I'm the director of Hancock Regional Planning. I crafted the farm animal ordinance, and this is Rob Feitner, the city law director. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, present the new version of the farm animal ordinance, answer any questions from the public, discuss any changes that the public would like to see in the ordinance. If you do not wish City Council to pass this ordinance, it may be best to discuss that with City Council. Neither Rob or myself have any authority on if Council passes this ordinance or not. And obviously there's no legislation being passed tonight. This is just a discussion. So why create a farm animal ordinance? Establish clear, consistent, and fair regulations for keeping farm animals in the city. Address growing community interest in address the growing interest in backyard livestock. Provide clear standards to prevent nuisance and sanitation issues. Protect animal welfare and public health. Reduce neighborhood conflicts and enforcement ambiguity. So this proposed ordinance would go into Chapter 508 of the City of Findlay Code. It would permit the non-commercial keeping of farm animals within the city, ensure animals are properly cared for with safe and sanitary conditions, prevent nuisances from occurring in neighborhoods, and this is enforced under Section 505.08 of the Findlay Municipal Code and the OAC 901-12. So this process started probably May or June, worked on crafting some ordinances. We've worked on this ordinance, obviously. It's been brought up, I think, in 2023, maybe 2019. It's been brought up over the years. So this summer I was directed to start working on 5 updates to the Findlay Code, and this was one of the 5 updates. I looked at a lot of different cities, I looked at 117 cities, 64 had regulations for farm animals, 37 outright prohibited farm animals, and 19 were silent on farm animals. And Findlay is one of the 19 communities that are silent on farm animals. So the original version that I presented was about 7 pages long. It mirrored a lot of what other communities have, but it was more permissive than other communities. We received feedback from residents, concerned citizens, and then we had some discussions on different ways to enforce farm animals, and kind of where we ended at was increasing kind of the general nuisance standard with animals, noise, waste, etc. That's currently going through council. And the second part would be a very general outline of requirements for farm animals. Like I said, the first version was 7 pages long. This is 1 page long. So we've taken out a lot of any of the confusing items. This is very basic. If I had to describe it in 1 sentence, it would be large farm animals don't belong on small urban lots of a ½ acre or a ¼ acre. So let's talk about the ordinance. So small farm animals, chickens, ducks, rabbits, similar animals under 50 pounds, they are permitted on any parcel within the city. There are no limits on lot size or the number of animals. Must comply with sanitation and nuisance standards, and that's it. So essentially, we went from discussions of limiting chickens, roosters, etc., to there are no restrictions on small farm animals. This isn't too long. Let me get through it, then we'll do some questions. We are being live streamed, so when you do ask a question, I ask that you come up to the microphone so that the audience in the internet can hear you also. Medium farm animals, goats, sheep, and similar animals, 50 to 500 pounds. Minimum lot size 1 acre. Must be contained within a fence rear yard, and a shelter must and they must have a shelter, and it must comply with the zoning setbacks. We don't describe the fence, we don't describe the shelter, simply the shelter must meet the setbacks. The rest is up to the property owner. The only thing that we do state is the fence can't be in the front yard. There is no limit to the number of animals that you could have on the 1 acre. Large farm animals, that's animals greater than 500 pounds. Horses, cows, pigs, similar, etc. Minimum lot size, 3 acres. Fencing and shelter requirements, same as medium. You have to have a fence. We don't state what type of fence. The only stipulation on the fence is it can't be in the front yard. And then you have to have a shelter. We do not stipulate what type of shelter. It simply must meet the building setbacks. And then there's some general sanitation and nuisance standards. Animals must be kept in clean, healthy, and humane conditions. Only small farm animals may be slaughtered on site for household use. Slaughtering must not be visible from neighboring properties or streets. Must comply with nuisance provisions in Chapter 505. We have an exemption for 4-H and the like. Applies to any educational programs such as 4-H, Future Farmers of America, or similar youth programs. We ask that if it becomes an issue, written verification of participation must be provided upon request. So I'll answer one question here. I want to keep 5 chickens. Do I need a FFA or an educational exemption? The answer is no, because there are no regulations for small animals. So the 4-H exemption would be for large or medium animals. Grandfathering provisions. Existing animals may remain as legal non-conforming use if proof of prior use provided within 90 days. You do not increase the number of animals or facilities. Use is continuous without a 12-month break. The rights transfer with the property. And there was a lot of discussion of why are we asking for the proof within 90 days. So if you read the last sentence, the burden of proving a non-conforming use is on the property claiming the use. This is simply for good communication. So 5 years from now, I have 3 pigs and there's an issue. And I say, I'm grandfathered. And we say, great, we'll go look at the file. There's nothing in the file. Then I have to prove that I had 3 pigs in 2026. So, a lot of people, I think, were upset about this provision. And what it really, I view it as a protection for the property owner. You submit it. I am grandfathered for 5 pigs, Matt Credonier, 100 Oak Street. It's in the file in the city, and I have a copy of it in my hand. So in 10 years, when there's an issue, whatever protections the grandfathering provides me, I have a piece of paper that says I'm grandfathered, rather than, well, let me go back to my feed records from 2005 that shows I had 5. So really what this is an opportunity to lock in and have good communication for both entities. You can leave with a piece of paper that says I am grandfathered for 5 pigs, and you can show it to the city every time I'm there. Now, grandfathering does not protect you against nuisance type things. So there is a limit to protection of grandfathering, but you're granted the use, but grandfathering does not mean you can continue your use as a nuisance. And we'll answer more questions about that. One question is, I have Steve the pig. Steve the pig is not grandfathered. One pig is grandfathered. So Steve's great-great-grandchild pig is also grandfathered. It's the number of animals. It's 3 animals at 100 Oak Street. I can have those animals into perpetuity. It's not those 3 animals die and I lose my grandfathering. It's 3 pigs, any 3 pigs. Now with grandfathering, you can lose the grandfathering status. And this is just like for a grandfathered building, grandfathered zoning, etc. And the main way to lose your nonconformity is if you discontinue the use. So if I sell the house and they don't want pigs, so there's no pigs there for 2 years, I buy back the property, the grandfathering of that is lost. So discontinuing the use, you have no animals for 1 year, then you lose your grandfathering status. So I just wanted to provide some clarification about the grandfathering. It is a protection to the property owner. You know, when we make zoning laws, we make different laws. You can't just say, in many cases, there's a new law. Everyone now has to come into conformance with it. If you're legally established, I'll let the law director talk more on that. But I just wanted to help explain what that means. Definitions, you saw those. Small farm animals, 0 to 50 pounds. Medium farm animals, 50 to 500 pounds. Large farm animals, 500 pounds or greater. So next steps, tonight we want to collect public input, answer questions, concerns. And I imagine a lot of you in attendance don't want any sort of ordinance, and I would say feel free to express that, but Rob and I don't affect that process. We're looking at this having its first reading at the next city council. We're going to take feedback tonight, make any changes to the ordinance. The ordinance is up front. Those changes will be discussed at Planning and Zoning Committee Thursday at noon, and then post that, any changes that we make, then we'll put it on the agenda to have its first reading at the next city council meeting. Okay, so that's an overview of the new version of the ordinance. I guess, Rob, would you like to talk about enforcement, and then we'll open it up for questions or comments?
Well, my answer or my response might be more important here a little bit later, but these types of ordinances, whether it's a zoning issue about a house or trash or junk vehicles, my office is the one that based on an officer's report, decides whether or not to file charges. So I just want people to understand that there's a checks and balances here. Now, if we have an overzealous officer that wants charges on a certain topic, whether it be farm animals or whatever it may be down the road, we review those, and I hope in my 26 years of doing this for the city, still in a common sense way, deciding whether or not maybe we need additional letter writing, finding out what's going on at the property, who the owner is, what their situation is in life, who their family is, can we reach out to them to solve the problem and so forth before we file charges. Charges are always the last ditch effort when it comes through my office. Officers in some cases are able to write citations right then and there on the spot, but these types of things when it comes to zoning and this animal enforcement proposal and so forth and junk and trash usually come through my office, and we screen those in a common sense way to decide what's the best way to proceed. So the idea that when this was first presented in a 7 to 10 page form and people were worried about inspectors walking around their property looking for things. That's not the case. It wouldn't have been then, and it certainly wouldn't be under this reviewed proposal that the city is looking for. So there is an extra layer of protection just to keep this out of the court system and being a mess. That's one of the most important things that our office does.
With that, we'll open it up to questions. If you want to ask a question, just come on up to the center stand and we will discuss.
My name's Tom Demuth, and we have farm animals down on Front Street. Small farm animals. Can you go back to one of the screen that I asked you about? If we're gonna, okay. It says there to comply with sanitation and nuisance standards. Exactly what standards are those? Are those written down somewhere?
Yes, Tom. Back on October 2nd, I had written a letter to council in the council packet in regards to rewriting an ordinance in regards to animal noises. Ours in the city was just catered towards dogs. I was never sure why as a prosecutor, although we didn't have a lot of those issues, and changed it to basically, as other jurisdictions have done, to any kind of animal noise, whatever that may be. I mean, I'm not an experienced animal raiser, but I know peacocks can get crazy, or certain things. So
Correct.
if that was an issue, we would be able to regulate that. What was also done at that same time was just a mention in that letter that we already have on the books an ordinance under 505. 08, which controls no person shall keep any kind of animal or fowl in the city as to create noxious, offensive odors or unsanitary conditions, which are a menace to health and so forth. So somebody's property gets out of control no matter what kind of animal they have. That's already been in place. I forget what year that went in. It might have been in the 1980s, but
Correct.
that's already in place. And then we have one that was also in place. This one looks like it was in 2010 about controlling your animal's waste off your property. So people who are walking their dogs down Main Street or in another neighborhood or down their road, obviously you see people carrying the little doggy bags and all that stuff. So those things we've already have in place. So the
Correct.
city's already regulating odor, noise, and waste. It's not changed. It's just been clarified a bit, basically on the noise level. This is separate from that. This is about what you can own and have. The other ones that have been in place already are about
Correct.
common sense taking
Right,
care of your
right,
animals.
Right. I just wondered if there was other standards or whatever for this other than that ordinance you guys are just coming through, and I don't remember if it passed or didn't pass,
I
or
don't
did
know
it?
what reading it's on. It's
I forget
in the
which
middle of
reading.
its readings
I
right
think
now.
I think it's got.
But
one
that was
more.
that was just on the noise. The
Right.
other ones are already been in place for
Right. Right.
15 years.
I just gotta, it did the noise from all animals was passed.
Oh, it
At
was?
the last-
Okay.
That was the third reading.
Right. I just wondered, how loud's it got to be, and for how long to say it's a nuisance.
Well, and having done this for a long time, there was a period of time we had a problem with a lot of bars in town,
Correct.
having bands late at night and so forth, and depending on where they were located and whether or not there were apartments above them or beside them, we had to enforce that. So officers would use, I mean, I hate to say it, this is a long time ago, but use decibel meters and so forth. But they
Correct.
would record them when cell phones came out and basically present it to the judge and go, look, I stood there for 20 minutes. It never stopped. It was, I could hear it from, I lasered it from my car with the, laser speed device, and it was 200 yards away for 20 minutes
Yeah.
and that was
Okay.
up to the court to decide whether or not that was a problem.
Right.
But we also always try to write those people back then, the bars, to say, look, you can't really have this kind of thing going on till 2:30, maybe till 10, maybe till 11. I don't know. Be a good neighbor, and those things went away. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the same thing here.
All right. Next question was on the medium animals. It says here that you need 1 acre for a 50-pound animal. Now, most people aren't going to have just one let's say goat. They need a partner. They need somebody to keep them out of trouble. I feel an acre is pretty large for a small animal. You've got residents that have 150-pound dogs, and they're kept on way less than an acre. They're kept in a house and a backyard that maybe is fenced in. It's maybe 30 by 60 or something like that, which
So-
is far cry from an acre.
You've hit on the animal that I wanted some feedback on. I think if I had to pinpoint it, I would say there are a representation of goats in the city of Findlay. And I think I was leaning towards some sort of way to handle goats, almost in the small animal category. But I was at the zoo this weekend, and I went through the farm animal section, and there were goats that were 20 pounds, and there were goats that they appeared to be 300 pounds.
Correct.
big
Yeah,
goats.
you get
So,
different sizes.
and I'm very familiar with, some of the smaller goats, and so I wanted some feedback, and I think there should be consideration for a carve out for goats within the small animal category. But, do you have goats?
I do not. We have kicked it around once or twice about keeping goats on the property,
Sure.
which is less than an acre.
Yeah. So, if anyone has any thoughts that they'd like to share in terms of changing this ordinance, I was thinking maybe the definition of a small animal could include goats less than 100 pounds. I don't know if that would accommodate. I don't know if a 100-pound goat is a good city goat. I don't know.
Well, you have dogs that are, up to 150 pounds? Anybody?
Yeah,
So we have dogs that are up to 150 pounds.
sure.
I don't know why, our small animal thing can't go up to like 150. You're not gonna find an adult sheep that weighs 150 pounds.
Will it be more or less?
I don't know. They look a little heavier than that, but I don't know. A sheep is they're pretty big and
I
bulky.
will say, and I understand the dog argument. I would say in my research, it appears that dogs are much more, you're more expected to see half the people on your street own dogs. They just become more intertwined with our society.
Correct.
Whether that's right or wrong, I'm just saying, so.
Chime in on that.
Yes.
One thing that I made a note of in this proposed ordinance is that, at least in the definitions, we have a special section of law that in regards to domesticated animals, and there's a definition, both Ohio Revised Code and City Code, on what a domesticated animal is, but basically it's dogs and cats, those things that we think of, and it probably would make sense that they're excluded from this. There are big dogs. So
Sure.
that would just be excluded from this because we're not worried about the tendencies of a big dog. They can be trained, their owner can train them, so on and so forth. But that's different from a farm animal, whatever the city wants to call that.
We do have a definition. When we added the agricultural district, we did add the definition of a farm animal. That does exclude.
And that's different from a domesticated animal.
I'd have to look at. I don't have the definition.
I don't know. I don't know either.
I don't think the intent of this is to restrict the number of dogs
Correct.
that somebody can own. It would just need to be made more clear.
I
We're
realize.
and for purposes tonight, I'm thinking of farm animals. I'm thinking farm animals. I don't know. The
Correct.
Fisher Price set of farm animals probably doesn't come with a dog, but it might come with a with a horse and a cow and all that stuff.
Oh, I think when I was a kid, I think it did come with the dog. All right, that's all I have.
Thanks, Tom.
Randy Odermatt. I wasn't planning on speaking this evening, but just a couple of things I want to try to emphasize here. I have no farm animals. I have no interest in farm animals. My wife wants to get a goat. I've been shooting that down for the last couple of years. But I would go along with Tom, and what I would like to see on this is to get rid of the minimum lot size on the medium farm animals. I live in a neighborhood down on 6th Street by Emory Adams Park, and I have neighbors that have goats. I have a neighbor who has a large pig, and he keeps it in the house in the wintertime. It's like a big dog. And he's got a little fenced-in area out back. It goes out there with warmer weather. I also have across the street and down the street, of course, the old horse farm that's down there. And I am not absolutely sure if that's in the city limits or outside the city limits. Can you tell me?
It is in the city limits.
Okay, it is in the city limits. All right. They obviously have enough property there, and everything there is well maintained. So I would really like to see the lot size for the medium animals, the goats and the sheep. Pigs are going to be a little different story, but like I said, I do have a neighbor that has a big one. There's no problem. The other thing that I don't really care for that much is that under the grandfathering clause, that the number of animals or facilities cannot be expanded. Let's say, for example, you've got 2 goats and they have a baby. What do you do with it? Or maybe if you're going to add maybe a couple and you want to, or maybe you have an old garage now that you're using for that. You say, well, I'd really like to use that garage, park my car in. Let's build a separate building to keep the animals in. You wouldn't be allowed to do that under this. Those are the points that I wanted.
Could you explain the garage portion?
Well, let's say you have an old garage
Yeah.
that you're keeping your chickens or whatever in, and you're like, well, I'd really like to rebuild that garage and make a wood shop out of it and put the animals in a separate facility. Build a separate facility, build a little barn out back, put it in. You wouldn't be able to do that.
I think you would be.
It says, I believe under the grandfathering clause, it says facility or number of animals or facilities is not expanded.
So you have, let's just, for example, you have a 500 square foot garage,
Mm-hmm.
which you are keeping the animals in,
Yep.
and you turn that back into a garage. And then if the accessory structure, if you can meet the standards for accessory structure and you build a new building that's 500 square feet,
But you couldn't make it 6.
yes, that's the way I would interpret it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that either, but those are just the points that I wanted to make.
How are you, Matt? Rob?
Evening.
Evening. I'm Sean Mason.
Hi,
I have a
Sean.
couple thoughts I want to talk about
Sure.
with this ordinance. My first question is, who does enforcement?
So the first line of enforcement would be the zoning department, Eric Adkins, Jody, Officer Joe, who does full-time zoning enforcement, and then the police officers out in the field if they come across something. Generally it's complaint-based unless they drive down South Main and they see a cow grazing in the front yard of a house. But that's generally the extent. Do you have any other?
Yeah. A lot of your language is zoning based. you're talking about setbacks and
Sure.
parcel use, right? But this, where you're putting this ordinance, this is really pedantic, and I apologize.
Yeah.
But where you're putting this ordinance is not in zoning law. It is in enforcement.
Correct.
That would make the police the enforcer of this, correct?
It could make police or zoning the enforcement of it, just like junk vehicles.
And that's part of my problem with the ordinance is it's written to control behavior, but it's put in the zoning ordinance.
Sure.
Right. So,
So-
it's the police are not going to go out and measure setbacks. Right. But the zoning, Eric doesn't have any teeth because of where this is you can't enforce it through the zoning laws because you understand that it has to be one or the other.
Well, some of that's just assigning to what department has time and availability to address it, and that's really between them. And since I've been on board since January, there's always this, well, who enforces junk cars and who enforces trash? And I'm like, to me, my answer to those guys is I don't care, but somebody has to. Right. But that's something that they'll have to figure out. But when we think of Eric Atkins, we think of zoning. When we think of Joe Smith, we think of trash and junk vehicles, and that's up to the PD how they want to allot those guys' duties. And I think there's some change that's going to happen there anyway. But it should be enforceable by anybody whose attention it comes to. But as far as the complaints go, if they make it to zoning, they're going to pass it to Joe. If it's Joe's not going to handle it, he's going to pass it to Eric, and so on and so forth.
And I think those people would be the appropriate people to enforce it. My problem is I think it's written and is put in a section that makes the police the authority. And if that's the case, the police aren't going to measure setback and worry about parcel use. That's something that zoning would
Sure.
worry about. And that makes me a little worried about if it's going to be applied evenly.
So I will look at, so it originally started in the zoning ordinance, and we had discussions about it. And we looked at, honestly, the 67 communities that we looked at, most had placed it within the 500 section of their code.
Right.
To me, so one of, and I'm sitting here with the law director, but to me, it's whoever gathers the information and brings it to the law director. Generally, it will be Eric, Adkins, Jody, and Joe who have the time and the experience of looking at setbacks who will collect that information.
Understand. I just wanted to give the input before you
Yes.
make the final draft.
And Sean, some of the things that have changed since I've been on board, since I was on the enforcement side as a prosecutor and not the law director's civil remedy versus criminal remedies situation, is that what we've done is all these fact patterns can be unusual, complicated. I mean, we removed a 30-foot boat from a backyard off of Blanchard Avenue. I never knew was there. On behold, there it was, and we got through that. But the way that we're doing it now is that regardless of whether it's Eric Atkins or Joe Smith, what department it is, police, is that they're generally coming to me to say, here's the new issue we have today, Rob, and what should we do about it? And I try to then apply a common sense solution. It's the easiest and most efficient, and say, well, who owns the property? Do they need a letter? Is it an old lady whose bad grandson is doing all this stuff and we need to find him instead, so on and so forth, landlord versus tenant, all those things. And that's the way that we're handling it now. So it's kind of free flowing based on the facts of each case. It gets crazy, but that's the best way for the left hand to know what the right hand's doing. Instead of somebody just hauling off and saying, I want a request for charges, and then we're charging people for maybe something we could have worked out.
My next question, I think you answered already. Like I said from the back, I have 250-pound English Mastiffs on a half-acre lot. If you don't add an exception for pets, for companion animals, this applies to them.
Yes.
Right.
I will double check. We did install a farm animal definition with the agricultural district. I will double check before we move forward, but it does carve out farm animals versus dogs, cats, pets.
Right.
Yeah. And in between now and then, I wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah. Another thing, I appreciate the intent behind the grandfather clause. But my issue with limiting to 90 days is, as well as I do, that the general public doesn't pay attention to this stuff.
Sure.
And that means a lot of people are going to lose their rights to have animals on the right light because they're not paying attention. There's really no good avenue for us to advertise that to people. And that's a concern to me as written.
So, and that's, I agree with you. I don't like how that's written. and law director. I don't know. Let me ask you, put you on the spot. It's day 100. Someone comes in, or it's day 250. Someone comes in. Can they actually lose their grandfathering because they did not come in within 90 days?
I would suspect if they have some kind of proof of it and they just missed the date line, that we could figure that out. I mean, nobody's here to do anybody harm. You know, in the old days, as I'm getting older, everybody read the newspaper, and not so many people read it now. So when there was new things about seatbelt laws and this, that, and the other, the paper made it very clear to the public of what was changing, and now people either don't read the paper or at all. So, and you try to use social media to put stuff out there in the city's website, but I would hope that if this would be something that the city council wants to do, that we could get with the paper and some other social media avenues to let people know what's going on. And my guess is, and I could be very wrong, is that, you know, that the number of people in this grandfather clause situation for medium and large animals would be a fairly small group. So hopefully the word could get out to them. But I mean, exceptions can always be made. Discretion can always be used.
I'm sure you're tired of me talking about constitutionality lately, but I do believe that you personally will make a determination individually with respect to people's rights, but there's no guarantee that you'll be law director forever. And when the next person may enforce these very, very strictly, and being arbitrary means a lot of things are unconstitutional. I think Lisa Miller submitted a pretty good brief in one of the council packages about a case in Seneca County that is applicable to a lot of the things we've been talking about lately, and I think we need to be very conscious of that. The lot sizes here, they're arbitrary. You're just picking a number. The weights are arbitrary. You're just picking a number. And I think those are both things that are potentially problematic, and especially if you say, and again, I'm not criticizing your intent, but if you say we're going to selectively enforce this based on the intent of the person, it's arbitrary. And those are all problems that we're going to end up in court over.
So when we started this 4 or 5 years ago, we did sit down with two agricultural experts, and it was interesting. Their feedback was their feedback was these are way too small of size for the animals, these lot sizes, the 1 acres, 3 acres. Mm-hmm. They had and they're experts, they have opinions. They had concerns about, they talked about how it was more, they feared for large flocks of like chickens and animals several miles away from Findlay, and that the animals within the city of Findlay are not getting the shots and the protections from bird flu and different things. And so they viewed that urban farm animals were kind of a breeding ground for different diseases.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that.
But I wouldn't say that 1 acre is arbitrary. I mean, we're using information on a best reasonable estimate of how much land is needed to raise an animal.
I think density would be a better measurement. I mean, the way this is written, if I can have 1 goat on an acre, or I could have 200 chickens on a small lot downtown.
Yeah.
And as long as they're sanitary, right? Because that's the caveat.
Yes.
And while I doubt somebody can keep 200 chickens sanitarily on a lot,
Sanitary,
but
if they could,
then
yeah.
that's perfectly legal under this ordinance. And I think density is a better measurement if you're going to do this at all, which I don't necessarily agree with. But
sure,
I think density is a better measurement, and that's really all I have. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sean.
Hi, my name is Debbie Back, and I think I can add a little bit to the size of the animal. We mentioned pigs. I own a breed of pig that is called Juliana, and it's bred to be small and domesticated.
Okay.
The farrier that we use that comes in from Michigan to take care of the hooves says that he has 4 to 6 clients in Findlay.
Okay.
There is one other person in my neighborhood. I live in Fox Run. My pig is an indoor pig, just like a cat or a dog. I don't have a fenced yard. I don't need one because my pig is never outside, maybe twice a year on a leash to eat a little grass and come in, but it's not kept outside. Where do I fall in this?
Without embarrassing Juliana, can you share her weight? I'm just
Oh,
curious.
no, that's okay. That's her breed. That's not her name.
Oh, okay.
It's the type of pig bred specifically to be small.
Gotcha.
75 pounds.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a mini type, and they've become rather popular in the past 15 years. A lot of the younger folks, actually it's my daughter's pig, a lot of the younger folks like them small so they can have them in houses and apartments. And she's 11 years old, will never grow to be bigger because she was bred in that line to be that small.
Yeah. My first reaction would be, I would be very surprised if we received a complaint about your pig. And 2, and this goes back to Rob might not be the law director forever. I can't. Rob says, "Oh yes, this is a violation," and God forbid it gets to court. I think that the judge would laugh us out of the courtroom, saying this woman's pig lives in the house 363 days a year, 53 days a year, or what So, but what I would like to do is look at the definition of farm animal and domesticated pets to see if there's some. That's the first place I would look to find an exemption for your very cool pig.
Well, thank you. Well, and just so that you know, there are others in Findlay. I
Sure.
wanted to bring that up. A lot of times when you say pig, people think hog,
Sure.
the giant thing, and this little thing is this big. There's a lot of dogs that are a lot bigger
Sure.
and definitely noisier.
Noisier, yes.
Okay. The other question I had was, and this may just be my ignorance about grandfathering. My pig has a life expectancy of 20 years, and she's 11. So if I'm grandfathered in, I'm anchored to the home I live in now. If I want to move in Findlay and live somewhere else, I lose my grandfathering. I lose my right to have her unless
It does go with the property.
goes with the property. Okay.
What?
That part kind of bothers me with an animal that lives that long, but
I believe it goes with the property.
am I still grandfathered?
My opinion is it goes with the property. I don't want to say that, but that's what my opinion is. That yes.
Yeah, that would be the only other thing I would have an issue with, is that it landlocks me unless I want to find a half acre or an acre. Right now, for my little piggy, I have to have an acre lot. I wonder how many acre lots there are in Findlay.
Sure.
In my neighborhood, they're all pretty big yards and they're half acre lots. So
Well, thank you.
it might be a challenge. It might cause me to have to move further out of the city limits if I wanted to move into a different house.
Well, I mean, I can say, for an animal that lives in the house 95% of its life, I see no difference between your pig and a dog
Me too.
in that circumstance.
Me too.
We are not the first community to deal with this, so I will do, most of these suggestions I will look at. I will present the information Thursday at the Planning and Zoning Committee. But, you know, the goats density, getting rid of medium farm animal, minimum lot size, and your pet pigs, those are some of the things that I'm going to research and provide recommendations for on Thursday for the Planning and Zoning Committee to discuss.
Okay.
But in no way, in my opinion, the purpose of this ordinance in no way is trying to target an indoor pet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the feedback.
I want to say something. And I think it's a good point to mention something else as well, back to the enforcement issue. You know, the bottom line is, I lost my train of thought on this, is we're trying to apply common sense here. And so we're not looking at trying to go out and find problems on behalf of the city. This is when we have a problem, we need to have something in order to deal with it. And so when it comes back to enforcement, there's just got to be common sense applied to it. It's no different than if we're looking at is it illegal to resist the arrest by a police officer? Well, certainly it is. But if we come to find out that particular suspect or defendant was having a seizure of some sort at the time and had no control over himself, well, we'll figure that out at the end and address it appropriately. So these are the same sort of things. We can always come up with hypotheticals of, well, what if? But that's for the prosecutors and that's for the court system. That's why we have judges and prosecutors for that.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. I kind of have been writing while you've been talking.
Sure.
So bear with me just a little bit. So for clarification, I can have like 200 chickens, but not one goat. I live on less than a half an acre.
As it's written, and that's a concern of mine.
Okay. And then, so you did mention how in the bars, you know, they would be out till 2:30 or be loud until 2:30 a.m. And, you know, you kind of had to say, hey, can we be a good neighbor? And they did. So I guess my question is, why can't we kind of enact that functionality to farm animals? Why?
I mean, I would say 9 times out of 10, they are the good neighbor. You know, a lot of times a letter, hey, this is an issue. You may not have realized it, and then they fix the issue.
Yeah.
That's the perfect, I wish everything worked like that. But then there are the people who refuse or can't or whatever, and that's when sending warning, letting them know it's an issue, letting them know what the rules are, and then it's really a discussion with Rob.
Right.
And how do we move forward?
So basically everyone gets penalized for the few not being good neighbors. That's kind of where we're at.
I'd say it's the nature of all laws. I mean, all cities and all countries have
Yeah, I know.
thousands
I have
of
issues
laws.
with. I know, and I have issues with lots of them.
I understand.
Okay, so I guess she actually brought up a good point. Why can't we include farm animals in domestic animals for reasons like her pig? Because they are smart. I know you said they're not smart, but actually there's lots of animals like goats and sheep you actually can train. So
I did not say she was not smart.
no, not her. No. The animals. You said that they're not as smart as.
I wasn't saying that.
No.
Pigs are very smart.
But yeah, so, because you were referring them to the farm animals, different than domestic.
I may have misspoke, but
So
no.
like, why can't we just enact? I guess I have a different question first. Sorry. If we have an odor and a noise ordinance now, what is this going to do? Because you said that takes over. So
I think the city's concern, as I've understood it, is the idea that if the rumor on the street is, or if it's a fact, that somebody living in the old 1967 part of the Finley Country Club neighborhood has a horse living in its garage, that's going to be a concern to the city and probably a concern to the neighbors, aside from being a concern to the dog warden, who's the enforcement of other animal issues, that the city needs something to say, that doesn't work here, to have a horse living on concrete in a garage in that kind of neighborhood. It doesn't make sense. And I think that's what the city is looking for, something to enforce the wild, outlandish situations that may have arisen over the years that have brought this to the city's attention.
So that horse has no access to outside or grass,
The fact pattern I heard, it was not very good, but it's been resolved.
but it's been resolved.
Right.
So
It
now
wasn't
we have
living in a
this,
yard, it was living in a garage.
but it's resolved. So now we have this ordinance over something that's been resolved.
So I mean, I will play
Well,
devil's
that case was resolved, not the
But
overall.
what other cases are there? Because you specifically brought up the horse in the garage.
So
And I would assume that's where the acre and the 3 acres come from specifically, or from that, which is actually good to know because I was kind of curious.
and I'm not trying to say this in any smart way. I'm saying this very respectfully, but 95% of Findlay residents don't own farm animals, and they have to be potentially subject to a nuisance farm animal because a couple people want to own. There's two ways to look at it.
100%. That's why I'm not against the new ordinance that you guys proposed, changing it from dog to animal. I'm not
Sure.
against that. 100%. Yes, noise and odor absolutely should be. But, I mean, it's no different than the 200-pound dog, right? So if I wanted a pig, I don't know why I couldn't have one, especially a meat pig. So 15 years ago when I bought my house, I didn't know my son was going to be in 4-H. I didn't know I'd have an interest in raising meat for my family. And pig is something that I couldn't do either.
4-H exemption, yes.
No, without just for my family,
Sure.
not on 4-H.
Sure.
So it kind of just depends. Or a goat. They have great milk. So there's kind of some clauses in there. Yeah, I hope that you're going to kind of
Sure.
work.
I definitely, and I believe I think I sent you an email about goats requesting feedback. I don't know if you got it.
That's why I was here.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know that you wanted me to email. I wanted it like everyone to be able to know.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
No, because my understanding, I've heard from goat folks, and my understanding there's a decent amount of goats in the city, and
Yeah.
that raising them on a smaller lot is fairly reasonable.
It is.
So that was my number one question coming into tonight. How
Okay.
will we handle goats?
Okay.
And I don't love the 50 pound, but you have to have some criteria, you know.
But you want to specifically distinguish the weight because of the horse, right? That's what I would assume.
Well, you have to, when describing a small animal, I think you generally weight as a criteria. Maybe, one suggestion I'm thinking of is moving the weight from 50 pounds to 100 pounds. And then,
Maybe
and then
200. But even then,
Sure.
it's kind of hard. There isn't anyone that's getting these animals and not doing what they should be doing. Obviously you said it was even resolved, so maybe they just didn't know that they weren't taking proper care of the horse.
Sure.
So, okay. Let me just make sure. Oh, you had talked about discontinuing. It only discontinues if you sell the property. That's the only way.
No. So grandfathering with zoning,
Yes.
a non-conforming building, a non-conforming use. Generally, one of the ways is if you discontinue. So if you own a barber shop and it's non-conforming for whatever reason, the use, you stop using it as a barber shop for a year, you can't reestablish it as a barber shop. This is the same. That's probably just more confusing. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
You have animals, they're grandfathered. And then for 1 year, you have no animals.
Who knows that?
Exactly. Grandfathering, that's,
But so you're almost preying on if you can get away with it, do it. That's so crappy because
there's-
me, I started going into the limelight and people started calling Joe Smith on me. And I'm now targeted and discriminated against because I've started speaking out. That's what, and you even said it yourself, this is complaint based. You're
Sure.
preying on people to complain to let you know. You don't find that a little like crappy?
No, we do see that. We
Okay.
see residents weaponize the code
Right.
against other residents, and we're generally pretty good at identifying.
Okay.
It normally starts off with, I have a violation for something. I get mad, and then I point out 3 violations.
I could have done that, but I
you know.
didn't. I didn't.
So we do see that, and honestly, I mean, I've seen it for my almost 25 years in zoning at 3 different cities. People do weaponize the zoning code. I will say, in my experience, it's generally not followed through on because the violations are generally minor and no one had complained before.
Well, I'll just give you my example. So someone called about my camper that was out front, and it had been there for 3 days because my truck broke down. And Joe came out and told me that I needed to move it. And you know, we were discussing how he could see the truck that had no axle because it was completely broke down. And my husband was at work, and I said, "Well, he's not going to be home till 8 p.m." And he's like, "Don't know what to tell you. You have till 1 p.m." And I said, "Well, how much is that citation?" And he said, "No, I'm going to tow it at 1 p.m." So you guys don't actually give a lot of grace, and sometimes you're not very nice. So what about that? Because I don't have a lot of faith right now. Like,
Sure.
I'm very targeted by the city. So what do you say to someone like me?
I can say I'm not familiar with your camper situation, so I can't comment on that.
Why I requested the police report, and there's nothing on it. So I don't actually even know how he came out.
So you haven't been charged with anything?
Well, no, because I moved the camper, or he was going to tow it. He threatened me. But that's what I'm saying. So
Sure.
if I deal with that, where is my support in this? Because how do I think that it's going to be enacted appropriately and not used against me?
Sure. I will say, I mean, the grandfathering is a protection.
Oh, and also, is there a way that you can make that, well, I would like it to not be there, but for the owner and not the property? Because like me, I would love to move. I need a bigger home. And if I have access to that, I would love that, but I wouldn't want to move and not be able to because I couldn't take my animals.
That's something,
We already made a note of that, I think.
yeah.
The question is, what if the person moves with their non-conforming
Or maybe
use?
both, because what if the
That's
person
somewhat
coming in
different.
really likes that I have a chicken and they want chickens, but if I move, it only comes with me, not them. And now they'll never be able to get them. So maybe it brings my property value down.
That's a good question, and that's the second time it's been brought up. I
Okay.
will
Sorry, I
look
was
into
reading.
that.
Okay.
I'm generally very curious about that.
Okay. Thank you. And then, no, I think I'm done. So sorry. Oh, also, no, sorry. You said when you talked to the agriculture department, they were kind of inducing panic. They were talking about diseases that we have because we don't vaccinate in our city. You kind of just like washed over that, but like, I mean, we take proper care, vet and everything
Sure.
for our animals. So avian flu and stuff should not even be a concern.
Yeah, they
Okay.
just,
No
they,
different.
and it's been,
Okay.
take this with a grain of salt, it's been about 4 years.
Okay.
We had the conversation. Some of the takeaways were they had fear about the way that some of the urban animals are taken care of, and that those diseases might be able to spread out to the larger flocks in the community.
Right. Which can
Um,
happen no matter where. But okay.
So that,
Okay.
and then they had comments about the lot sizes, and they thought they were way too small.
Okay.
So
Do you know who you spoke with? Just so I can write that down.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Will you email me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Yes. Who else would like to speak?
I'm Mike Stone, and I'm like Randy. I don't have farm animals, don't plan on getting farm animals. So this doesn't really pertain to me other than the one issue that I have. You look at the nuisance control here, you refer to Chapter 505 of the code. And you talked earlier about common sense. My question is, at what point, and we're dealing with manure,
Okay.
at what point does it become common sense that it's just too much to be in the city?
Well, Mike, this isn't really a part of the topics of what we're talking about tonight. That's an enforcement issue as far as a whole nother set of ordinances. This ordinance is on the ownership and keeping of animals. Okay, I mean,
Yeah, I understand that, but it is under the farm animals situation here, and that has been an issue in the past that was not enforced.
well, in my 26 years as prosecutor, we've enforced animal control problems as far as waste or odor goes. It's case by case basis. If my office as prosecutors feels charges are worthy, we read the officer's report and file charges. Then it's ultimately up to a judge, if the parties can't resolve it before a trial, to let the judge decide. It's just like the noise ordinance. What's reasonable noise? What's unreasonable for an animal noise? What's, it's case by case basis, and hopefully any prosecutor's office uses some discretion in how they charge it and what the facts are. There's
Okay.
not a definition. That's what courts are for.
Exactly.
So that's as a lawyer, that's a simple answer. Is when lawyers disagree, it's, well, then let the judge decide if we breached a contract or had too much waste or drove too fast or whatever the case may be.
Okay, and I guess maybe I talk later about it, but that is our issue with the farm animals, is it's being abused, and it has not been enforced.
Well, right
in our
now we don't
situation.
have anything on farm animals, but the city does have old ordinances on the waste odor.
Correct. And I guess that was my complaint, is in the past, even with the ordinance in place for the nuisance, it was not enforced.
I mean, things run in cycles. I mean, I can have a discussion with Chief Matthias of the police department or the dog warden and see what role they want to play in it or what they're doing about it. I know Arlington's had some issues, and the dog warden's been down there making reports and enforcing things. It's just, it's the squeaky wheel gets the attention, but it has to go through the process and the discretion of the court and prosecutors and everything else.
Okay. All right. I would say aside from that, I've talked to some of the chicken owners here. I'm on their side. I think that, they've had good conversation tonight. I appreciate what you guys are doing. But I guess I'm kind of on their side, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Matt, Rob.
Good evening.
My name's Melissa Humphris, and I reside at 915 East Sandusky Street, which I'm sure you're well aware. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance regulating the keeping of large animals, specifically horses, within the city limits. My family's property is not a new development, a temporary hobby, or a speculative use. Our barn was constructed in the 1950s, and my parents purchased our homestead in 1966, at which time the stable held 24 horses and was fully occupied. Horses have been lawfully, continuously, and responsibly kept on this property for decades, long before many of today's zoning standards, long before much of the development that now surrounds us, and certainly long before this proposed ordinance. I'm not speaking to council, but I would still like council members to understand that this ordinance is not being applied to some hypothetical future owner with a backyard goat. It directly targets long-established, lawful, historic uses like mine. For nearly 60 years, our family has fed, cared for, and maintained horses responsibly. They are fed twice a day, turned out when weather allows, and housed in a structurally sound barn that has existed for generations. We also live immediately next to the Hancock County Fairgrounds, where equine activity has long been part of the community identity and culture. The proposed 3-acre requirement is not responsible and it is not a lot tailored to any demonstrable public health or safety concern. What it does, in its practical effect, is force long-standing families out of their historic, non-conforming uses by administrative fiat. Under Ohio law, including major cases such as Boyce v. Ottawa Hills and the non-conforming use principles recognized statewide, a municipality cannot simply extinguish an existing lawful use that predates the ordinance. The city must respect those vested rights. An ordinance that disregards that history is arbitrary, unsupported by evidence, and inconsistent with established constitutional and land use principles. Before this council votes to restrict or eliminate uses it may not fully understand, I must ask directly, how many members of this council, you guys, Law Director's Office, have any formal, practical, or lived experience with horses, livestock management, animal husbandry, or equine health and welfare? This is not a rhetorical question. Maybe I can ask this at the next council meeting.
I have none.
When legislating in an area that directly affects living creatures, longtime residents, private property rights, and long-established agricultural heritage, expertise, and experience matter. Misunderstanding the care needs of horses or the actual standards already imposed by Ohio law can lead to poorly drafted and unnecessary regulations. I have 1.399 acres.
Okay.
All right, and you're wanting to expect 3 acres for horses? My horses get turned out not to graze. They get turned out to get out of their stalls. They get fed twice a day in their stalls,
Sure.
okay?
So, and that's where, and I agree with you 100% on grandfathering protection. You have grandfather protections. You establish that use legally, and then here comes a rule that defines that use. You don't have enough room you don't have 3 acres, but you are still protected by the grandfathered status. My question that I want to talk with Rob about, and it's not just you, but someone else, a few other users in town. So it brings up the question in my mind. You have a barn built in 1966.
No, bought in 1966.
I'm trying to take good notes.
Purchased in 1966,
Purchased in 1966. Obviously, it's been there a long time.
very long time.
That barn is designed to hold X amount of animals.
Correct,
So you have 24 stalls?
yes.
24 stalls. So my question that I want to look at, have a conversation with Rob is and let's say you have 5 horses. Is the proper grandfathering for the capability of that property before the law went into effect, or the current number
Of animals.
of animals? I don't know that answer, and that's one of the things that I want Rob
And that's one of
myself
my
to look into.
concerns, is because the property was bought as a stable for people to come in and rent stalls. And that would be my concern, is that's the way if I were to sell the property, that's how I would want to sell it. You have the ability to have 24 horses in here. The horses like I said, the horses get turned out. I've had neighbors complain because they didn't have anything to eat out there in the paddock, but they weren't out there to eat. They were out there to walk around, to be out of their stalls. I have a 70-foot barn, or part of the barn, the lean-to, or something like that, for to house the manure and the manure spreader. And yes, I spread my manure on my property because I have talked to the Hancock Soil and Water, and they gave me the thumbs up and the green light for that. The horses are bedded in the finest sawdust possible. I'm talking about not how wonderful it is, but how fine it is. It's very,
Sure.
very fine. And their stalls get cleaned twice a day. I'm looking at this sign that says must be contained within a fenced yard. I've tried to do that and tried to contain my horses with a gate because they have periodically gotten out and the gate gets left open by the neighbors who are using it.
Okay.
So I know that's not here nor there.
But the fence question is a good question. So you have a fence set up in a certain situation. And this is more, it's pertinent and it's hypothetical, but you have a fence set up in a certain situation.
Yes.
We passed a rule. We can't make you change your fence. You understand? So.
No, that's not my point at all.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm just letting you know.
No, I'm
that-
taking precautions to keep the horses fenced in, even if they escape another fence, because that's happened before.
Okay.
So my question is, and this might be a civil matter, I don't know, but the neighbors are not closing the gate.
That's a civil matter.
They go through the gate, but they
Yes.
do not close the
I
gate.
thought you were going in a different direction.
No.
The city cannot make you change the arrangement of your fencing because that's the way the fencing was before the law was created.
Okay, so this is what you asked what I would urge the council to do.
Sure.
Acknowledge and explicitly grandfather all existing lawful horse facilities and homesteads. 24 horse stall. Okay?
So I would probably word that differently, but I do want, to me, it's a very personal question for you, and to me, I find it a very interesting legal question. You have a facility that in 1966 you could house 24 horses in. In 2025, we make a rule, and then is the grandfathering the 24 horse slots or the number that you have? I have a feeling.
I mean, it's a very good point. I mean, that's something that we need to look into. I mean, if you've got a stable that holds 24 horses, but at the time this hits, you have 10, it's just something to look at.
Yeah.
If it's safe and makes sense that it's made for 24 horses, then it probably could be 24 horses, whether or not there's 10 or 12 there at the time. And we can look into that. It's not a big deal.
All
No,
right.
I agree. I lean towards the 24 horses.
Okay.
At the same time, I mean, I think it would be,
It's kind of like on the other side of the fairgrounds, off of Wyandotte, there are the stables for the racehorses. Right? Within the city limits. Okay. They don't get turned out. They get exercised, but they don't get turned out.
gotcha.
So,
But no, I do think, what I was going to say, and you probably will disagree with me on this, but yes, your barn can hold 24 horses. I don't think you would find anyone who would say keeping 24 horses and only having a little bit of land for them would work well.
well, they get turned out, they get rotated out.
Sure.
Okay. That's how that's worked.
I mean, I think it would have to have a pretty aggressive manure management to have that many horses. That's
Right.
all I was.
Next.
Yes.
Remove or revise the 3-acre requirement, which is arbitrary and unsupported by evidence. Engage with equine experts, local veterinarians, and longstanding property owners before enacting rules that directly affect them. Ensure any ordinances addresses actual nuisance issues, not hypothetical concerns, and respects property rights that have existed for decades. Findlay's identity includes deep agricultural roots.
Agreed.
Okay. I grew up following the Santa Pure Dairy horse down the street. Clippity-clop. Fairgrounds rich in equine history and families like mine who have never posed a health or safety problem. Do not write an ordinance that forgets who we are or that punishes the very residents who have contributed to the character and continuity of our city for generations. And the ordinances that you have enacted have absolutely weaponized neighbors against neighbors. I've had police reports against me that were absolutely false. One neighbor who said that the manure was going into her yard, and I honestly can say this from the depths of my heart, manure, especially horse manure, does not roll uphill. Always goes downhill. So,
So,
do you have any questions?
so one of the reasons, so I disagree that the 3 acres and 1 acres is just arbitrary, pulled out of anywhere. But one of the reasons, to me, in my mind, the 3 acres does not affect you in any which way.
I was going to say, if it were that the horses were not being fed and that they were relying on that land as their pasture, I would agree with you.
So,
But it's not.
so because you were established before the 3 acres, the fence, before this, you have grandfathering rights. My concern is someone without a barn, without any facilities, tries to establish a horse farm on this smaller area. I think it's not, you seem to make it work, but it's not ideal to start a horse farm on a very small parcel.
Right.
That's the viewpoint.
And I wouldn't
that
call
I'm
it a
taking.
horse farm. I would call it a stable.
Okay.
Different, I'm not out. Yeah, anyway. Sure. Anything else?
No, I've taken down, you brought up a very interesting question. We will be looking at that. And thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Hello. So I would like to know what happens when my neighbor calls, makes a complaint, and an enforcement officer arrives at my house, and they're there, to whatever, they got a complaint, and I tell them, you need a warrant to come on my property to look for a violation. What then?
Well, that is not your particular case or hypotheticals are not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the proposed draft regulating ownership of farm animals in the city.
So if they come to my house and I say you can't come on my property and look for one of these animal violations without a warrant, what happens next?
Well, I'm not going to answer your question. Now you can ask that to your own private attorney, I guess. We're here to talk about this proposed ordinance, how it works, not warrant issues.
So you're saying that your officers can enter private property without a warrant to search it for farm animal violations?
No, I said that we're not talking about your hypothetical tonight. We're talking about whether or not this farm animal ordinance is any good, needs any of your input, or those kind of questions. Not a warrant issue is a case-by-case situation. So you're asking me a question like you would ask your own attorney. I can't and should not provide you that answer or even try to answer that.
So is what I'm getting at here is that any search of private property without a warrant is trespassing and a violation of our civil rights. So if we do not allow them to search us, they are powerless, right? Like your enforcement officers, if we say you cannot search my property, there's nothing they can do, right?
I have no idea what your question has to do with whether this ownership of small, medium, or large animals
So
is
let's say
appropriate.
I own 50 chickens and someone calls and makes, or let's say I own some goats and chickens and someone calls and makes a complaint, and an enforcement officer comes to my door and says, we got complaints, and I say, go, that's good. Go tell those people that I'm an American citizen and they can complain all they want, and I have every right to own animals that I'm using to feed my children, my family.
I would suspect the answer that you would get was they're going to enforce the laws as they are allowed to appropriately under the Constitution and Ohio
So they need a warrant
Constitution.
to enter private property?
You don't always need a warrant, but this isn't a discussion that we're having tonight, okay?
Oh, we can't
Take
talk
your
about
warrant
that.
questions to your own attorney or somebody else.
So, Mr. Cordonier, who elected you? Are you elected?
I get this question a lot. No, I am the director of regional planning. I have no authority to enact.
You just write these ordinances?
I went to school as a city planner at the University of Cincinnati. Spent 5 years there. I've worked at 3 different cities, 2 in the state of Ohio, 1 in the city of Indiana. The way this works is the city, the administration, we work together. They look to me to help draft ordinances.
Who pays you?
The county pays me. I'm under the county payroll.
Gotcha.
So
So you primarily focus on government control of citizens, like drafting ordinances that will control us?
from your viewpoint, yes.
Yeah. So like the government control of private property is your primary focus here tonight. So when you're taking, like, you said that you went to the zoo, right?
Yes.
Did you ask them what their size requirements are for their animals? Because they have a lot of the similar animals at the zoo, don't they?
Yes, I did not.
You did not.
No.
So you were there where they keep them, and like that's the zoo, and now you want to make like a certain lot size restriction for certain animals, for like horses. You
Yes.
didn't ask anybody at the zoo like what kind of sizes we should have for that kind of stuff?
No, I did not.
Oh, that probably would have been some good input right there, don't you think? Now, I own a property that has a carriage house in the backyard. Do you know what a carriage house is?
Yes.
So people used to use horses for their main mode of transportation, right?
Yes.
And do you know what this would have done if you would have tried to enact something like this on people who, that was back then, everybody owned horses, right? They didn't have to have a certain size lot to have a horse, right?
No.
They had a carriage house, which now you guys are calling a garage, which now a lot of them have been turned into garages, right? But a carriage house, primarily, it was designed and built to be for farm animals. And we're talking about 1/4 acre lots or smaller here in
Sure.
town.
Understand, yes.
And now you're trying to say we need 3 acres for a horse. When it used to be a 1/4 acre or smaller, people would have multiple horses, right?
Yes.
So do you see how you're taking away our rights and you're replacing them with permits? That's what fascists do.
And, but I
But
understand,
this,
Matthias.
this is not what Matt is looking for. This is what the city is looking into to see if it's appropriate and makes
I'm
any
telling
sense
you it's
to
not
have.
appropriate.
And so that's
I'm giving
that's
you
gonna be noted.
examples.
That's going to be noted that you do not like this proposed ordinance, and we're going to make note that other people had suggestions of tweaking it, and all that's being noted, and that's the purpose tonight.
Well, I'm not going to register my animals. I'm not going to do the grandfathering thing. So I have this magical piece of paper because I'm going to use the U.S. Constitution as my piece of paper I'll hold up. When your enforcement officers come to my property, I'm going to be like, if you don't have a warrant, you're not allowed to look on my property for anything at all. I mean, it pretty much, this whole ordinance relies on everyone allowing them to enforce it. So if we don't allow you to enforce it, then there's nothing they can do, right? Like your officers, are they going to violate our constitutional rights and come onto our private property without a warrant? Do you think a judge would give you a warrant to look for a farm animal violation? Is it like that? Is it that serious? What do you think?
Well, it's not a topic for discussion tonight.
Oh, we can't talk about that.
No.
Your hypotheticals we can talk about. Some of their hypotheticals we can talk about.
I'll
But
answer
my hypotheticals we can't talk about.
I'll answer your question. If any law enforcement agency seeks a warrant from a judge, the judge has certain standards to which they need to listen to under sworn affidavit, written and oral, of whether or not a warrant is appropriate. That's not Matt's. That's not my issue. That's the court of law's issue.
Okay, so you're going to try and punish people who are trying to provide for their families by creating more control over them. And this typically is the poorest people in the community are the ones who decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to try and be self-sufficient. I'm going to try and raise some animals to take care of my family. And you typically, your legislation, Matt, the stuff that you come up with targets the poorest people and puts more regulations and restrictions on them to make it more difficult for them. Their taxes is what they end up being for the poorest people. You know, the fines are a tax, the permits that you got to pay for are a tax. Now, wealthy people, it doesn't affect them to go get permits for whatever these zoning things are. But poor people, when you got to shell out money for a permit, that's taking food away from their children or diapers or whatever it is that they have to, you know, to support their family. So, like, I get that you want to make Findlay into this magical HOA where, you know, everybody, you know, has, you know, the HOA laws, you know, where you don't have to pay the HOA fees, but you get all the benefits of an HOA. And that's what this is. This is just more control, HOA type of control. And if people don't like living near farm animals, I guess they can move into one of those neighborhoods that have HOA restrictions that don't allow them at all, right? Like, why take away everyday American citizens' rights because someone out there is going to complain because, oh, he's taking care of his family. He's providing for his family. We need to do something about that.
Understand. Matthias, we've had lots of conversations over the years. They've always been pleasant conversations. You and I will probably never agree on these types of issues.
Oh, well, no, I'm pro-America.
I understand.
And I'm totally against all these fascist restrictions on the American citizens. They're wrong.
Okay.
Completely wrong.
So, you've had a decent amount of time. I'll give you a little more. Is there any other? I understand you do not want it to be passed. Is there any other critiques that you'd like to give me?
Well, you're the one who claimed you were just at the zoo, but you didn't ask them for any kind of information on lot sizes for the animals that they have.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make sense? Like,
So this is my last thing, and then we need to move forward. We did look at other communities. This would make Findlay one of the most permissive communities in Ohio in terms of farm animals.
so you want to take what we have, where we have no restrictions, and you want to take our rights away and replace them with these rights or permits, right? So
Yeah.
right now, Findlay's one of the only 19 free communities, and you're like, well, we're not going to be free anymore, not after I'm done with it, right? We're going to be,
Yes.
it'll only be 18 left then, right? Findlay won't be on that list anymore. You're going to take us off of it.
So
That's sad.
Have a good evening, Matthias.
I'm proud of being one of the 19 that don't have any restrictions. And I'm ashamed that you guys are going to try and pervert the Constitution and take away our rights.
Understand.
Like that's the wrong, you're going in the wrong direction. You should be trying to restrict the government, not the regular citizens.
Okay.
Like where I live, right? There's city property beside me, but you guys will make a law that says the gas station has to build a nice brick wall around the gas station that's in a residential neighborhood, but you don't say the city has to build a nice brick wall around the city's wilderness area beside my property to keep out the wild animals and stuff, the foxes and the things that come and kill my animals.
Sure.
So, like, why wouldn't you make more restrictions on the government and say, okay, the city owns this property, we're going to make restrictions on what the city can and can't do, or we're going to make the city take care of their property, but instead it's all about controlling the people because you get like one or two complainers. For some reason, the complainer's right to complain supersedes my right to my civil rights. Like that doesn't make sense. I have the right to offend people, and that right on my property supersedes anybody else's right to be offended who's not on my property. They don't pay the taxes. They don't pay the mortgage, right? I know it's hard to understand this stuff, but
No, I feel like we've given you a fair amount of time. I thank you for speaking. And
have a good evening. Thank you for at least sitting there and telling me you won't, even listen to my hypotheticals or entertain them. So have a good evening.
have a good evening.
I know that you said that you don't want to answer him, but like, I know that you said that you didn't want to answer him in his hypothetical, but like I was targeted, so I am going to actually ask again. Yeah, what does happen if the enforcement officer comes and I won't let him in the back to see? What's the next step?
What are you going to train your people to say or do?
I don't know the facts of each case. It's not up to me. What
Okay.
am I going to say? If the officer feels
to
that
the
he needs a
enforcement
warrant to
officer.
enter that property, he's going to go to a judge and ask for a warrant. The
Okay.
judge either going to give it to him or he's not.
Okay.
Or the officer is going to make a decision based on what I hope he understands the law correctly, and go on the property without a warrant.
Okay.
There are plenty of exceptions to a warrant, and this isn't a law school class on warrants tonight.
No,
but
I know,
there's
I
a lot
wasn't
of stuff about that you can talk about all day long.
Yeah.
It takes a whole 2 semesters in law school to
I wasn't
talk
talking about the
warrants.
warrant. I was literally just saying, like, if there was a complaint and he came on my property and I just wouldn't let him, no warrant, anything. I'm just like, in that instance, what
Then
happens?
That would be a question for you to research or to ask your lawyer.
Well, no, I would want to ask Joe Smith if he's the one
Well,
coming
he
to my
shouldn't
property.
be giving you any legal advice.
No, if he's coming on my property, I'm not letting him come back, I'm saying. If he says, I need to come back and see if you have goats or chickens, and I said no, like, then what does Joe Smith do?
He has to decide if he's got an exception to the warrant clause or not.
So he gets all the power in that moment.
Well, he's going to make a decision, but
Okay.
he can make a decision to go get a warrant and come back in 30 minutes.
Okay. I do just want to say that I did have input, but I do not agree with this at all. I didn't know I was allowed to say that. Do not agree. I hope it gets
No.
tabled and removed.
No. I mean, I just wanted everyone to know that myself and Rob have no bearing if this gets passed or not.
But were you the only two that were enacting this, like that went over the legislative process, that drafted it?
No,
Were
it
you
went
the only two
to
that
it went
did
to
that?
Planning and Zoning Committee twice. It'll go a third time this Thursday.
Okay.
We started early. Planning and Zoning Committee is made of 5 members of City Council.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I was
I
late to
came
that
up with
party.
an initial draft. We worked through different drafts. We had there was a lot of feedback at the City Council meeting,
So I came in after the first. Okay, I understand.
and then hearing all the feedback, we changed it to this much more very
Gotcha.
simple. I mean, to be honest, I've gotten a lot of feedback that this is way too permissive. We're letting way too many farm animals in the city. So I hear it from both sides.
Can I ask who said that?
What's that?
Can I ask who said that was permissive? All the other cities? Like all the other city
No,
admins?
residents.
Oh, okay.
Just in my everyday,
Okay.
oh, Matt, you're getting a lot of crazy stuff about this farm animals. And then, why the heck do people have farm animals in the city? So there are two sides.
But they didn't even know that there was farm animals?
What's that? I will say most residents are shocked that there are no regulations for farm animals. But in my experience,
But I would assume that that's because they don't come across them, so it's probably weird to them.
no, if someone, I mean, I feel like we've gotten a lot of feedback.
Okay. I just wanted to put
what
that.
I have to say what wasn't important.
Okay.
But no, you're definitely allowed to say, I don't want this.
Okay. But I
Don't
did
like
just
it.
want that hypothetical.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we're getting close to wrapping up. Tom, you'd like to speak again?
I would like to speak again unless somebody else is.
Yeah, no double dipping unless someone,
I'm absolutely not going to speak about warrants.
what you got, Tom?
All right, hang on here a minute. One thing I do have for your definitions, maybe we need to put a definition of farm animals in there. The one with the pig is not a farm animal. A farm animal is an animal that's raised for a specific purpose, and that's not to cuddle or to be a support animal or nothing like that.
Tom, may I ask, are you looking at our definition of farm animal? Is that what you're looking at?
There is no definition of farm animals
There's
on here.
yes, there's one in the existing code already.
Okay. But
But
maybe
there's a definition section.
all right, you've got a definitions down here.
Those are new definitions.
Okay.
So what I want to do, one of my checklist of things to do before Thursday, and I meet with the Planning and Zoning Committee, check the definition of farm animals, and then see if that can accommodate any type of domesticated pets that live within the house, et cetera.
Right, because a farm animal, of course, is made for or there for a specific purpose: food, clothing, labor.
Yes.
You know, working horse, and wool from your sheep,
Yes.
milk, eggs, anything like that. That I think should be in there, or something like that in your farm animal.
The reason I didn't list it there is because it's already in the ordinance. Everything on this sheet would be new to the ordinance, so but I will be looking into that, because
It's tough to find some of them ordinances on that city site sometimes. To say again, I do think the 1 and 3 acres needs to be reevaluated for those animals. Another thing that we hear a lot, Matt,
sure.
we hear other cities. Well, other cities do this, other cities do that. I'm pretty sure most people don't really care what other cities do.
I get that, but it's
Yeah.
also a good indication of what common practices are.
Well, is it common practice? Is it good that they're doing that, or do their people don't like it and they think it's terrible and can't do anything about it? You
Sure.
know, this is us. This is Findlay. We used to be leaders. Now we're finding out what everybody else is doing and trying to do that. I hear it a lot.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I look at communities all the time, and I say, like, the citizens of Findlay would revolt if we tried to enact this new type of thing, you know. So
Right.
I generally look at the very milquetoast, plain, conservative type regulations for Findlay.
Okay.
But that's just because another city has it doesn't mean it's a good idea. I
Correct.
definitely try to evaluate that.
Right. Right. That is all I have.
Last chance. Well,
I just have one more thing. The drawing's at 8? No, something somebody said, why not just put this on a ballot? Why not have all of the citizens vote on it?
I get that a lot, and I don't get that a lot. I see that a lot, and then eventually you get to a point where a government can't make a decision because we're voting on every single aspect.
This is pretty big, in my opinion.
But
And to have
That's-
everybody's
that's
input.
my opinion.
You ask for input, and we have input here, and I didn't hear anybody in favor of it tonight.
yeah,
Did you?
no.
Okay. I think that would be telling right there.
To be fair, the 2 other times we discussed it, I've seen the same 5 or 6 people, and I don't think 5 or 6 people are representative of the community either.
They're the ones who care enough to come. They're the ones who have cared enough to come here. So that's why I'm saying, put it to a vote and do some kind of something where you can vote on it, so we all have a say in it. If it's that important to you, and if it's that important to the citizens of Findlay, how many emails did you get in support of it? Did you get any? Because I've asked Kathy Launder and Brenda Stimmel to give me the information on how many complaints have been made in the last year, and I have not gotten anything, and that's been the 3rd that I asked for that 7 days ago.
Sure.
Got nothing.
No, we get calls, the complaints come into three areas: the administrative office, the zoning office, and my office. So in general, when people,
And they're written down? You make note
no,
of the
we
complaints?
we don't make a log of them.
Well, that's ridiculous. Why wouldn't you do that?
Just they're unactionable items, really. And then some people ask Uh, no, we don't keep a log of complaints. We receive them. We write down a complaint. So generally it's like, are there rules for farm animals, or there's a rooster next to me and it's making a lot of noise. And my response is, we have no rules for farm animals. If you'd like to make a noise complaint, this is how you would do it. And they're like, thank you. And then they hang up.
Okay.
So.
But I heard at the last council meeting that you get 3 complaints a week. But so how do you know that you're really getting complaints if you're not logging them? That's my concern, is that if you log them, of the 3 entities that are taking the complaints, and you can come together and say, hey, I got this complaint. What did you get this week? Whatever.
Sure.
Doesn't that make sense?
It does make sense.
If you're taking the phone call or you're reading the email, why can't that be logged so that there's, dare I say, evidence? I don't know. What would you call it, Rob? A paper trail? Something to go by.
All of this is a decision for council, so those who complain and those who support, that's up to council to digest that, investigate their wards, the councilman at large to go around and see what people think. What's interesting to me, in support of what you're saying, is in all the years that I've represented small villages and so forth, and now I'm here since January of this year, is whenever there's an interesting topic, and maybe this is just the psychology of things, you hear the complaints, but you never hear the supporters. And I don't know why that is. It's always an interesting thing to me. I don't know if the supporters just think, well, that's a good idea, it'll run its course and go into effect, and they don't show up to speak, or they don't write letters. But anyone that has a concern or a complaint against it, I think that's a more powerful feeling, and that's what brings people here to speak, and that's what brings people to figure out, how do I submit a writing?
I think it's because it affects them personally.
Right. So
You know,
supporters,
this-
you don't hear from them much.
'Cause it doesn't
but you do
affect them
from the
personally.
concern. You do from the concern, for sure.
Right. Okay. Thank
It's just
you.
an interesting point to make. It's something I've observed for quite a number of years.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for your thoughts and opinions. We are going to end this meeting, and this will start the legislative process. There'll be discussion at it at the Planning and Zoning meeting at noon on Thursday, and then at City Council, it'll have its first, second, and third readings. It is open to the public, yes.
It's open to the public, but it's probably not going to be open not open for discussion.
You won't even have 10 seconds to talk at that.
10 seconds, 10 seconds. Good job, Robin. And Matt. At least you guys tried. I don't like being yelled at. Can't handle it.
I'll stick with my points that I made about the lot sizes. Yeah. And the grandfather, if we have to determine whether it's property ownership or owner, that's gonna be
Dana Gardner. The woman now, right? Yeah, I can't think of her name. I mean, they've got, she would be dug up more than there's probably more. Yeah. They were the other 24/7. Where is your office? They're at the Humane Society. That's what I thought. And yeah, you don't, yeah, that's where they're at, unless it's where you go down. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, wasn't sure that I should have been here, and then when Rob mentioned that, I was like, well,